Students of the guitar, I am going to review a subject that I already covered on YouTube. Uh, it is about secondary dominant seventh chord in the major scale. I'm gonna review it because it is such an important concept that from time to time I try to go back to it. We know in the major scale uh, there's a primary dominant seventh chord which is built on the fifth degree on the fifth note of the major scale, and in the case of C major scale, it is G dominant seven chord. And normally that chord, the G dominant seven chord, the G dominant seventh chord normally resolves on the one chord, on the one chord, note number one. Okay, on the one chord, the number one chord in the scale, which is in this case the major scale. The C major chord. So normally the primary dominant seventh chord resolves on the one chord, and in the case of C major scale, that is C major chord. So that would be like something like this, and C major seven. Okay, so you need to remember that I am practicing, and I am inviting you to join me. Now, please remember to subscribe to my channel and hit the notifications bell, so you and I can have that kind of interactions more often. Okay, so I just play I just show you the relationship that exists between the primary dominant seventh chord in the major scale and the one chord in the scale. Okay, so G dominant seven chord resolve on one, on the one chord. There's a little noise going on outside, so if you can hear it, I apologize for that, but I'm going to keep on going. Okay, now the one thing that we know, since we have a a primary dominant seventh chord in the major scale. So what that means, we also have the other, most of the other chords in the scale can also be dominant seventh chord, but the only difference between those chords and the primary dominant seventh chords is that they are going to resolve on other tonics, but not on the one chord. In this case, the C major chord. They're going to resolve on any other chords in the scale, but not the one chord. Normally the only dominant seventh chord that resolve on the one chord is the primary dominant seventh chord. All the other dominant seventh chord that we can build within the scale are going to resolve on other tonics, and those tonics can be major, they can be minor. Okay, so we're going to take, for example, let's take a C7 chord, for example. C dominant seventh chord. Okay, so it's going to be, this is a chord here. That's a C dominant seventh chord. It can also be C dominant 9, and so on and so on. So in the key of C major scale, the C is a major chord. It's not a dominant seventh chord. So for that reason, this C dominant seventh chord is a secondary dominant seventh chord. That means normally it's going to find another tonic to resolve on, because it's not going to resolve on the one chord, because the only dominant seventh chord that resolves on the one chord is the primary one, which is in the case of C major scale, which is the G dominant seventh chord. So the C dominant seventh chord here is going to resolve on another chord in the scale, in the C major scale. But that tonic has to be a diatonic chord. That means, what I mean by diatonic, that it is the chord, that chord has to belong to the C major scale, to the C major scale. Okay? According to the rules of intervals in a major scale. So, how do we find the tonic that this dominant seventh chord, which is C dominant seventh chord, is going to resolve on? Okay, what we do, we start on the root of the dominant seventh chord. In this case, it is the C. So from this root, we cut down, okay, an interval of fifth, which is music is actually called a perfect fifth. it is called a perfect fifth because it has neither major nor minor connotations. Okay? So we have to count an interval of fifth below the C root, and then we will find where the tonic where the C dominant seventh chord is going to resolve on. So we're going to count. We can count together. A perfect fifth, I think I should start with, let's see. Okay, let's see, C, E, F, G. Okay, C, E, F, G. So we're on C. So I think we're going to start with the whole step. We C, and we're going to go down to we're going to the whole step down. So we're going to go to B flat. Then you're going to go down now another whole step, which is A flat. Actually that's wrong. So see, this is why we need to practice together. So let's see. We're talking about a perfect fifth, an interval of fifth. Okay, let's do it again. If I start an interval of fifth, let's say we have C. We start with C. So we go C, D, E. That's a whole step, and then E, and then you got F. That's a half step. Then you got a whole step. Okay, so if I start with when I count down, if I start with I need to start with the whole step. The C, go down to B flat, and then go down to half step, and then from there go back to the whole step, and then go to another whole step. Okay, then that's the perfect fifth, which is an interval of fifth below the root C. So that's an F. So this is what we have here. The C7th chord in the key of C major scale, which is a secondary dominant seventh chord in the scale, is going to resolve not on the one chord, but on the fourth chord of the scale. In this case, is the fourth chord in the fourth note in the C major scale is, we can do it together, C, D, E, F. That's F. So we know that if anytime you in the C major scale and you play a C dominant seventh chord, normally it should resolve on the fourth scale, on the fourth chord of the scale. In this case, it is a major. It is a F major. Okay, I'm going to play F major seven chord. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to do this so we can understand. You and I can understand this concept very clearly. I'm not gonna do all the chords, all the dominant seven chords one time. Today I'm just doing two of them are two of them are the same. It's the same procedures, the same steps. So I'm doing those two. And then another time we will go to the other ones. So we just did the primary. We did the primary dominant seven chord in the key of C, which is a G major, not G major, G dominant seven chord, which resolves on the one chord of the scale, which is a C major chord. You can be C major 7. Okay? Yeah, C major 7. You can be C major 9 if you want. You can be C major 6 9. Let's see, right there. It's up to you what you want to play. Okay, and then if you remember in the C major scale, if you play a C dominant 7 chord, it's going to resolve on the fourth chord of the scale. The fourth chord in the scale of C major scale is built on the fourth note. The fourth note is F, so that the C major 7 chord, which is this one here, which resolves on the fourth chord of the scale, which is F. I play F major 7. Okay, so this is the secondary dominant 7 chord. C dominant 7 chord is a secondary dominant 7 chord, as opposed to G dominant 7 chord, which is a primary dominant 7 chord, which resolves on the one chord. So another chord that is similar to the C dominant 7th chord is the D dominant 7th chord. Okay, so is the same procedures, the same thing that I just went through for the C major 7th chord. Is the same thing. Okay, you go to the D dominant 7th chord. Okay, and then you count. So in the key of C major scale, the D dominant 7 chord is not normally part of the scale, because in a major scale, the second chord built on the second note is a minor chord. So now you're playing that second note, which is supposed to be a minor chord. Now you're playing a dominant 7 chord. That's okay. That's fine, because in music you can substitute chords, but the resolutions, that's the thing that you have to watch for. So now in the key of C major, I'm playing I'm playing a D dominant 7 chord. So that's a secondary dominant 7 chord in that key. So where it's going to resolve, I'm not going to I'm not going to do it because you already did it. What you do, you go to the root of the D dominant 7 chord, which is D, and then from the root you count down a perfect fifth, an interval of fifth, and then what's going to happen? I'm not going to illustrate it on the guitar, but I can tell you what, when you count a perfect fifth down below the root D, you're gonna end up on G. So G is gonna be a major chord, okay? Just like F was a major chord. This is the reason why I told you those two chords, those two approaches of treating, of understanding secondary dominant 7 chord, those two chords, okay? The C, the first degree, and the D, the second degree, they are similar to that. They are similar when it comes to the walls, as dominant 7 chord. So to repeat from the root of the D dominant 7 chord, you count a perfect fifth below that root, which is an interval of fifth, 5, and then you're going to end up on G. And then G is the tonic, where D is a tonic chord, where D dominant 7th chord is going to resolve, okay? And we know it's going to be G, okay? It's going to be a major chord, okay? So D is a D dominant 7th chord, and it's going to resolve on G major 7. Okay. Now, if you want to improvise, if you go to the primary, let's say you're on G, okay? Let's say you're playing G, okay? You already know how to find there are many ways that you can find the roots of resolutions. So it's good to know different ways to resolve your dominant 7 chords. Try to learn different ways, not just one way. Then you get, because when you get stuck, then you can, okay, I forgot that one, you use the other one. So okay, this is let's say you're on G major, you play G major, not G major, you play G dominant 7 chord. Then I want to know the root. That's another way you can find the root. How to play the root on the guitar, especially on the guitar. I'm practicing. I am trying to. When you practicing when you're practicing, you need to try to discover things, different things, that on your own. You need to try to create your own tricks, your own bags of your own bag of your own bags of tricks. So maybe it's only you in chord instead, which is a secondary dominant 7 chord. Okay. Okay. Now if I let's see, C D E F 1 2 3 4. Okay, if I from the C, if I move up a perfect fourth, which is try to find the fourth note in the C major scale, it's going to be F. So from the C, from the root C, I count an interval of fourth, above the root, and I got an F. Okay? I got an F here. Okay, it's the same thing as a D, secondary dominant 7 chord D. Okay, let's see, D. If I move up a perfect fourth, that means an interval of fourth above root D. Let's see, D, E, F, G. It's going to be G. So a perfect an interval of fourth, which is a major, well, a perfect fourth is not a perfect fourth, which is an interval of 4, is the same. It has the same. How can I say that? You remember that I say the perfect fifth is not either major or minor. This is why it is called a perfect fifth. Well, it's the same thing for a perfect fourth. That's why it is called a perfect fourth. Do I know that? So in the key of D is D dominant 7 chord. If I count a perfect fourth above the root D, I'm gonna. If you count it yourself on the guitar, you will end up on the note G. Okay, so it's going to be G major. I'm going to play G major 7 chord, D, and A G major 7 chord. Okay, so it's not that hard. It's just we just have to understand the concept. We just have to remember that there's a primary dominant 7th chord in a major scale. In the case of C major scale, it is G dominant 7th chord. And normally the primary dominant 7th chord resolve on the 1 chord, which is C major chord. Any other dominant 7 chord in this scale, okay, it's a secondary dominant 7 chord. And one more important rule that you should know: for a chord to be a secondary dominant 7 chord within a major scale, it has to resolve on diatonic chord in the scale. A diatonic chord, like I told you before, is a chord that belongs to the major scale. If a chord belongs to the C sharp major scale, and all of a sudden we see a C sharp in a piece of music, in a piece of music written in the major scale, that C sharp dominant 7 chord doesn't belong to the major scale according to the rule of intervals. It belongs to another scale. So that particular chord in the major scale cannot serve as a secondary dominant chord within the C major scale. You know, a dominant 7 chord in the major scale needs to resolve on another chord in the scale that is diatonic to that scale. Okay, that means it belongs to the scale. Okay, you can resolve C7 dominant 7 chord on an F major 7 chord in the key of C, because F major 7th is part of the scale. That's his house. Alright, that's its house. So, but if you bring another, but an F sharp, no, an F sharp does not belong to the C major scale. It doesn't mean that you cannot play an F sharp in a piece of music that is written in C major, but that F sharp would be a visitor. Okay, a visitor. It doesn't belong to the major scale, to the C major scale. Okay, so it would not be. There's no way a secondary dominant 7 chord would resolve on it, because a dominant 7 chord has to resolve on another chord within the scale that is diatonic to the scale. Okay, I'm going to stop for today, and then I think we have only three more secondary dominant 7 chord to cover, and they will resolve on either I think they're going to resolve on minor chords as opposed to major chords. So in that case, that the dominant 7 chord will behave somewhat differently than those I just covered today. So, okay, see you next time, and stay safe.